This is a Cambridge IELTS listening test. Let's begin with Part 1. Part 1. You are going to hear a telephone conversation between Mike, a recruitment officer, and Sarah, a prospective employee. But first, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hello?
Hi, is this Sarah Collins?
Speaking.
Sarah, my name is Mike Johnson from the City Recruitment Service. You dropped by our office last Thursday to discuss career opportunities in graphic design. Do you remember?
Oh, yes, I remember.
Well, I've got some news about a job opening that seems to fit your profile.
Oh, yes, please go ahead. I'm listening.
It's a graphic designer position. I recall you've had experience with this type of work before, correct?
Yes, that's right. I've freelanced for various clients for about 3 years now.
Excellent. This position is located in the downtown business district at a marketing firm called Bright Ideas.
Oh, I've heard of them.
They're on Posh Street, block number 34.
Could you spell the street name for me, please?
Sure, it's posh. Let me spell it. It's P-O-S-H, Posh Street.
Got it, thanks. And what exactly would my responsibilities be?
Primarily, you'd be designing digital artwork for their advertising campaigns, managing website layouts, and occasionally, you'd work on print material.
Sounds good. I have a strong background in digital design.
They also need someone who can collaborate closely with their marketing team to create visual concepts for projects.
That's something I enjoy doing as well.
Great.
Before you listen to the rest of the conversation, you have some time to read questions 5 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 5 to 10.
Now, they emphasize that they need someone with a strong creative portfolio, which I know you have since you showed it to us.
Yes, I brought it with me to the interview.
Perfect. Another requirement they mentioned is the ability to work under tight deadlines. They have a fast-paced work environment.
That's not a problem for me. I'm used to working under pressure.
Good to hear. Now, the job is full-time and it's a 6-month contract initially. They're hoping to start someone by the 1st of next month. There could be a chance for a permanent position depending on business needs.
Okay, that sounds promising. What are the work hours?
They're looking for someone who can work from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. with an hour-long break for lunch. Does that fit your schedule?
Yes, it does perfectly.
There's also a workspace provided. And they've got a small but dedicated design studio.
That's great. I prefer a dedicated space. Is there anything else I should know?
Just that they value a collaborative spirit and the ability to bring fresh ideas to the table. They really want someone who can contribute to the team from day one.
I'm definitely interested.
Wonderful. I'll send them your details and set up a meeting. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Thank you, Mike.
Not a problem, Sarah. I'll be in touch with the details. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
That is the end of Part 1. You now have some time to check your answers to Part 1 Now turn to Part 2. Part 2. You will hear a coordinator giving a speech to the visitors of the Historic Maritime Museum. But first, you will get some time to read questions 11 to 14. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for visiting the Historic Maritime Museum. Since this is your first time with us, I'd like to provide some context about our museum before you embark on your self-guided tour. You're currently in our reception area, which was once the engine room of the old maritime station, established in 1893. This building was originally used for shipbuilding and repairs during the maritime boom. It was later repurposed as a community college in 1945, before finally becoming the museum you see today in 1973. In 2010, we opened a new wing to showcase our extensive naval collection. The museum is funded by the City Council, and outside of the exhibit spaces, the upper floors are utilized by the Council for workshops and training sessions. The building's historic design is notable, particularly the old captain's quarters, which, unfortunately, are not open to the public as they serve as administrative offices. We are proud to offer free admission. This includes all the permanent exhibits, the ship deck, and the special event halls. We run educational programs for all ages, including our popular Sailor for a Day experience at no extra cost. If you wish, contributions can be made at the donation stations located throughout the museum. Please feel free to use our cloakroom for storing larger items. We are one of the few museums that allow photography, so keep your cameras with you to capture the memories. However, it might be best to store bulky items to move freely through the exhibits. And while our indoor areas are comfortably heated, we suggest keeping a light jacket with you for the breezy ship deck area.
Before you hear the rest of the speech, you have some time to read questions 15 to 20. Now listen carefully and answer questions 15 to 20.
Now, let's talk about what you can explore here. Immediately beyond the reception is the Ocean's Journey Corridor, which displays an interactive timeline of seafaring history. This corridor was designed by maritime historians and is updated annually with new findings and artifacts. Our primary exhibit space is called Navigating the Seas. Here you'll find an array of navigational instruments used by ancient mariners, including astrolabes and compasses. Exiting this area, you'll enter the galley, which showcases the evolution of shipboard cuisine. Today, have a guest chef preparing traditional sailors' fare for sampling. Adjacent to this is the Life Below Deck exhibit. It's equipped with benches as it doubles as an educational space for lectures, making it an ideal spot for a brief respite. There's also an interactive quiz available here, testing your knowledge of naval history with questions related to the museum exhibits. Moving on, you'll find Eight Sailmaker's Alley, which displays sails from ships that have traveled the world. Each sail has a plaque detailing its origin and the voyages it has undertaken. These sails are delicate, so we ask that you prevent any children from touching them. You can then proceed to the open-air ship deck or revisit the exhibits if you'd like. Unfortunately, our Lighthouse Lens exhibit is currently undergoing renovation and isn't accessible today. However, we still have smaller lenses on display in our Navigating the Seas exhibit. Lastly, there's Harbor View, where you can observe local marine life. We have a group of young sea turtles that were just released into our protected harbor area. The platform is secured with railings, so it's a safe spot for our younger visitors as well.
That is the end of part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to part 3. Part 3. You will hear a discussion between Clara and Martin on the evolution of professions. But first, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen very carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Hello and welcome to Work Then and Now, where we discuss the evolution of professions. With us are our experts, Clara and Martin. Let's dive into the discussion.
It's a pleasure to be here. When we think about the past, we often picture traditional roles like that of a blacksmith.
Absolutely, Clara. But when we look closer, we see that jobs evolve. The blacksmiths, for example, have transitioned from shoeing horses to creating artistic wrought ironwork as a result of the Industrial Revolution.
And with the advent of the automobile, they've had to adapt once again, some turning to metal fabrication for custom car parts. The profession still exists, but in a different form.
Evolution is essential. Take, for instance, the role of a librarian. It used to be about cataloging books and managing the circulation desk.
That's right. However, librarians today are information specialists. They teach digital literacy skills and manage online databases, which are crucial in our information-rich society.
The digital realm has indeed transformed many professions, but let's also consider musicians. Once, their success depended on live performances and record sales.
Now, it's about mastering digital platforms, from streaming services to social media, to connect with audiences and manage their brand.
Speaking of the digital shift, photographers have moved from the darkroom to the computer room. The essence of capturing an image remains, but the tools and techniques have changed dramatically.
And this digital trend isn't just in the arts. Farmers who've always been at the mercy of the weather and seasons are now using technology to optimize their work.
Indeed, with GPS for precision farming and drones for monitoring crops, they are able to work more efficiently and effectively than ever before.
Before you hear the rest of the recording, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen very carefully and answer questions 26 to 30.
The educational sector has seen similar advancements. Teachers who were once the main source of information are now facilitators in a world where information is readily available online.
Absolutely, Clara. Teachers now integrate technology into their lessons using interactive software to enhance learning experiences for students of all ages.
As we consider other professions, we can't ignore the impact on journalists. Reporting has gone from a focus on the local community to a global audience with the rise of the internet.
And yet, despite these changes, the core principles of journalism remain: to inform the public and hold the powerful to account.
Speaking of global impact, environmental scientists have seen their roles expand from local conservation efforts to addressing worldwide environmental challenges.
With climate change at the forefront, these scientists are crucial. They use advanced modeling to predict changes and develop strategies to mitigate environmental impact.
The healthcare field has also seen significant changes. Nurses, for instance, were primarily seen as caregivers, but now they're key players in health informatics.
That's a perfect example of professional growth. Nurses now manage patient data, work with healthcare technology, and play a significant role in health education and advocacy.
It's evident that while technology has reshaped the landscape of work, the essence of many professions, dedication, skill, and a human touch, remains unchanged.
Well said, Clara. As we move forward, understanding these changes helps us prepare for the future of work, a future that holds new challenges and opportunities.
Thank you both for such an insightful conversation. Now, our listeners might have a better grasp of how professions have evolved. Let's test their understanding with a few questions.
That is the end of part 3. You now have some time to check your answers. Now turn to part 4. Part 4. You will hear a recording on the development of timekeeping devices like watches. But first, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen very carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon. Today, we will look at the development of timekeeping devices, specifically watches, and their significance throughout European history. I have chosen to concentrate on watches because they are ubiquitous, found on nearly every wrist and in every pocket. Yet, despite their common presence, the intricate craftsmanship and the technological advancements that have shaped their evolution are often overlooked in the world of fashion and design. Initially, watches weren't as prevalent or as precise as they are today. It's fascinating to note that in the beginning, timekeeping was a privilege of the affluent, where watches served more as ornaments rather than tools for time. In the 16th century, only the elite could afford these luxurious symbols of status. They were more decorative than functional, often made of gold and encrusted with jewels, reflecting the wealth and power of their owners. The earliest watches were worn around the neck or carried in a pocket, not strapped to the wrist as we see today. This method of carrying time was an entirely new paradigm in personal organization and autonomy, marking a significant shift in how time was perceived and valued. As the age of exploration advanced, the demand for greater precision in timekeeping became a matter of survival, influencing advancements in watch mechanics. It was only in the late 19th century that the concept of the wristwatch began to gain practicality, particularly after being used by the military for their practicality in synchronizing maneuvers. The art of watchmaking saw a significant rise in prestige during this time. It was the watchmakers of the Swiss tradition who became renowned for their precision and quality. This reputation was not born overnight, but was the result of generations of skilled artisans dedicating their lives to perfecting their craft. The democratization of timekeeping began as the middle class emerged and grew, and watches started to become more accessible. As for the watches themselves, they became more accessible to the wider public as production methods improved. The 20th century witnessed a revolution in personal time awareness, thanks in part to the proliferation of watches tailored for various professions and activities. The two world wars had a profound impact on the design and distribution of watches, pushing for durability and legibility. Women's watches have always been a bit more decorative, often resembling a piece of jewellery. In the 1920s, for instance, watch bracelets became fashionable. They were a statement of the times, blending aesthetics with the newfound appreciation for punctuality. Contrastingly, men's watches prioritized function over form, evolving to meet the demands of modern life. Men's watches, on the other hand, have traditionally been larger and more visible. This visibility was not merely a design choice but a practical one, accommodating the quick glances needed in an ever-accelerating world. The advent of electricity and new materials heralded the era of electronic watches. The development of electronic watches in the second half of the 20th century changed the industry again. These innovations led to timepieces that were not only more accurate but also more affordable, making precision timekeeping a standard expectation. In the current era, the integration of digital technology has revolutionized the watch industry once again. Today, the watch industry continues to innovate with smart watches that offer a level of functionality that goes far beyond mere timekeeping. These marvels of technology encapsulate the journey of watches from mere time-telling devices to multifunctional personal assistants, shaping our interaction with time and technology.
That is the end of part 4. You now have some time to check your answers.